Whew, that's like a whole station from the gym. Amazing. So today we are here in Shimabala on Mr. Solomon's farm. Now we are talking about land. I mean, land is the only thing in the world, for it's the only thing that lasts. But does it last though? So now today we are going to be looking at, do farmers really understand their land? How well do they understand the benefits of their land? And how often do they use synthetic fertilizer that sometimes damages their soils? We are definitely going to be looking at how well is the organic fertilizer going to work on the sweet pepper that he is going to grow, and how well is the soil going to respond to organic fertilizer. And of course, we are talking about encouraging farmers to use more organic fertilizer. Of course, not just any other fertilizer, but Falzam organic fertilizer. This show is brought to you by County Agritech and Infra Limited and the producers of Falzam fertilizer. So please do join me in Mr. Solomon's farm. Takutandalila ni kuno ku Shimabala. So kapina mungatibuzeko land size yanu and why you decided to grow pepper.
My land size is 120 by 20.
By 20, okay.
Yes.
Have you ever grown pepper before?
No.
Okay, so why did you decide to grow pepper this time?
I think
Is it for a change? Kuti musankeko kuti weka itashanga maningi mili siso tichiteko pepper lero.
Pepper lero.
Okay.
Chingeko.
Okay.
Instead of growing maize all along.
Okay.
Yes.
So muna 7 sapo organic fertilizer pari pepper or any other crop?
No.
Mukaribe kazankala kafesta.
So
lyonse mmasensa be synthetic.
Yes.
Okay, so vamne mu chita expect kuona as you are growing pepper with organic fertilizer, muchita expect what changes? Muchita expect kona advantages ya same na synthetic or chabe amene mona muchita expect vamushe kuchira pali synthetic?
Yeah, I think you need to expect kuona vamushe just because he fertilizer metima 7s. Itako iwonongako dot pango.
Okay.
Oh. So I think using a organic fertilizer similar as manure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mu market mwa paper munachitako research kuti igulisiwa bwanji paper and what are the profits? Munachitako research?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So mukaipeleka ku market kuja. Vamne muchita expect according to your research. Vinakukondolesani or you're just trying?
Yeah, vinani kondolesa.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
What is the difference between manure and Falzam organic phosphate fertilizer? SMS your answers to the following numbers and stand a chance to win a 10 kg bag of Falzam 0975 57 71 43 or 0762 26 68 88 or 0956 56 45 45.
Right, so we have heard it from Mr. Brighton Solomon right here in Shimabala. He's one of our farmers that are going to be part of the smart farming project, and he's told us he's growing pepper this time, and he's already researched his market. He's already seen what to expect actually in the market. So right about now we are waiting for some experts from Holland Green Tech that are going to help us with the land preparation, and they are going to be telling us how good is the soil for the pepper. Thank you for joining us here in Shimabala on Mr. Brighton Solomon's farm. So we just want to get an expert view of what really happens in the soil preparation and how you do the soil testing for the particular crop that Mr. Solomon wants to grow.
Thank you very much. As Holland Green Tech, we're quite excited to be part of this smart farming here in Shimabala. So the sweet peppers are quite one of the good crops that are quite of high value on the market. So I think we are quite interested to help Mr. Brighton in the production. So for you to have a successful production, you need to start from the soil.
Yes.
You need to know what is in the soil, what is missing, what you need to add.
Yes.
So for today, what we are going to do is we are going to do a soil sample.
Okay.
So in the soil sample that we are going to get, we are going to look at the parameters of the pH.
Okay.
the organic content, as well as the NPKs, which are the macronutrients to any crop. So when we test the soil, once we test for those parameters, it will help Mr. Brighton to know exactly what to put into the soil. Compared to where he just doesn't know what is in the soil, he doesn't know if the pH is low or if the pH is high. Then he'll be putting more, I think, more inputs which are not even needed. So once we do this soil test, it will help him to know what is really needed in the soil for him to have a good production of these sweet peppers.
All right, as you are aware that this project is brought to you by County Agritech and Infra Limited Company, the company that's providing us with organic fertilizer today. So Mr. Chendam Sonda, do you have clients that have actually used organic fertilizer in growing of the sweet peppers, and what was your experience?
Okay, yes, we've had a farmer that has grown these peppers using organic fertilizer just here in Shimabala. The name is Grace Pili. She did the same Ilanga, which is the yellow pepper, and the red jade. From what we saw, it did very well. The taste was quite good. Even when just the color as well as just how the crop would look, the fruit. It was quite amazing and it was quite attractive to customers. So all the customers that tasted those sweet peppers, they were really amazed about the taste, and she saw it quite good. So we've had farmers that have done it before.
As I can see there, you have some packs of the sweet peppers. So is Mr. Brighton ready to put the seeds into the ground and start growing so that he can yield the sweet fruits that you mentioned?
Okay, good. Yeah, so we need to get started. But how we're going to get started is we're not going to put this seed directly to the soil. So these are hybrids varieties. And then remember, we are doing a smart agriculture. So, and the idea is to have a good crop. So for you to have a good crop, it starts from a seedling. Raising a seedling, if you raise a good seedling, then you are going to have a quite bigger crop in the field. So we cannot nest these seeds directly into the soil. The reason being is, one, the temperatures right now are quite low, it's quite cold. So it will be difficult to germinate this seed. And then you find that if you do it direct into the soil, we are going to lose a lot of seeds into germination loss. The other thing, you find that in this soil, there are quite a number of diseases. So we don't want to expose the young plants to a lot of diseases before it could even have the energy or the vigor to fight back or to resist. So the best way is we are going to put these seeds into the nursery where we've got a controlled environment. So we are going to put it into the greenhouse where the temperature is controlled, and then we can use the growing media which doesn't have the diseases and other things. So that whilst the seed is developing into a seedling, it is going to have a good temperature and growing environment so that it can grow nicely before it's transplanted into the main field. So the moment we do that, then we are going to transplant into the main field. By the time you'll be doing that, the seedling is going to have a vigor to even do better and grow into a quite good crop. So that's what we are going to do.
You have mentioned taking the seeds into a good environment for them to germinate easily. How long is that process going to take?
Okay, so the sweet peppers, they take a bit of time to germinate. And with these low temperatures, I think around between 4 to 5 weeks, we should be able to have the seedlings ready to be transplanted into the main field.
Pamene ningafune kuziva nikashangidwe monga spacing between rows and spacing between plants.
Okay, so Mr. Brighton, kuchoka poshangila noenda peyo mzambo stagulisa will be part of this production. But if mungazive ku first ngakoti poshanga posta prepare ma lines mzafuni kuashita prepare pa 1 meter. From one line kwenda pa line inzake. So and then after that poshanga mzashanga pa 30 cm. Kuchoka pa plants inangu kwenda pa di plants inangu. Then chinangu che mzafuni kuchita chabi nikwati tusituyenda mukupya manje pepo zasila. So kuzamba kupya. So kuzafuni kuchita mauchi. Chita ku reduce manzi kuchoka mdot. Apart from that kuzafunika kusunga crop bwino so that yankana canopy so that kazuva kakachoka sishokewa na kazuva. Because kala expose na pakazuva straight makala yambokana ma sunburn. So mpela tunaenda ku market crop yanu isiwoneka bwino. So tuzampunzani wa kwetienda mosungira crop yanzo kati chimiliona kukazuva fonse.
since we all know that we are going to be using organic fertilizer to improve the soil fertility, so how are you going to know, or how are you going to help Mr. Solomon understand that his soil has actually improved now?
Okay, so what we are going to do is we are going to do a soil test.
Okay.
So we are going to sample the soil from this field, and then we are going to look at the parameters that we test.
Okay.
The NPK, the organic content. After that, once we use the organic fertilizer, later on, maybe after the harvest of this crop, we are going to do another soil test.
Okay.
And then we are also going to look at how the soil change, how the change could be in the parameters of what I've mentioned earlier on.
Okay.
Then when we look at that, we can see if the improvement of the soil that has been attributed to the organic fertilizer.
What is the difference between manure and Falzam organic phosphate fertilizer? SMS your answers to the following numbers and stand a chance to win a 10 kg bag of Falzam 0975 57 71 43 or 0762 26 68 88 or 0956 56 45 45.
This is Smart Farming Program, a program that is brought to you by County Agritech and Infra Limited, of course, the providers and producers of Falzam organic fertilizer. We are talking about growing crops the natural and, of course, the organic way. And today, we are going to be talking to the Director of Operations, Mr. Aubrey Chibumba. Please join me. Thank you for having us here at County Agritech and Infra Limited. So today we just want to find out a bit more about your products and how they actually came about into existence.
Okay, the product is actually obtained out of India.
Okay.
It's been under development for over 15 years.
Wow. Okay.
And the company involved is called Indo Group. They're the ones who basically supply us with the organic phosphate fertilizer. The reason why they undertook this journey into organic phosphate fertilizer rose from Ayurvedic principles. Ayurvedic is a sort of like practice, an Indian practice for health, but it also incorporates a lot of things to do with agriculture. And they started to recognize that ever since synthetic fertilizers had been introduced into India, the actual farm productivity had started decreasing. And so hence the interest in trying to go back to more traditional practices.
Okay.
And that's how the Falzam organic phosphate fertilizer came about.
Okay.
Firstly, you've got to understand the genesis of synthetic fertilizers. When large-scale farming came about, it was recognized very quickly that crops were failing after a certain number of years because there was mineral depletion in the soil. So the time when that was happening was also the time when industrialization in the West was basically at its peak. So the solutions that they were looking for at the time was to introduce phosphate fertilizers, because they realized that phosphate was one of the key ingredients. It's necessary for germination, it's necessary for root development, it's necessary for flowering and fruiting. Yeah, so very cool. So that's when around the 1850s they started developing these synthetic fertilizers. Now what we've seen is that progressively over time, the quantities of phosphate fertilizers that are required have kept on increasing. And when you try to find out why you are having to add more and more phosphate fertilizers to achieve the same sort of yields, when you analyze that challenge, what came about was that they realized that there was something called phosphate fixation, which was taking place in the soils. So basically what phosphate fixation means is that you take a soluble phosphate fertilizer, it's soluble, it can dissolve in water, but it reacts with other minerals in the soils to form things which are insoluble, right? Now when they're insoluble, they can't be accessed by the plant, yeah? They cannot be accessed by the plant, and that's why you find that year in, year out, you have to start increasing your dosage of phosphate fertilizers, because basically most of them are becoming insoluble. So you could think that you're applying 50 kgs worth of fertilizer, but you're only getting maybe 5 kgs of it, right? Okay, because the other 45 is getting fixed in the soils. Yeah. So that is the challenge that most farmers face all over the world.
Amazing.
Okay, and the move to organic fertilizers is targeted towards two things. Firstly, where fixation has occurred, to start reversing it, yeah, and there, secondly, to increase organic matter in the soils, and that also helps with water retention of the soils.
Maybe just touch a bit on organic manure to help the emerging farmers understand what is organic manure and organic fertilizer.
Okay, there is a specific difference between manure and a fertilizer. All right. What is important to understand is that in the general terms, they're both fertilizers. Okay, because fertilizer just means anything that you can put, provide to a plant that helps it to grow and produce a crop. Yeah, that's what general meaning of fertilizer. So they're both fertilizers. Now, why they're called manures is because these are derived mostly from animal waste. So maybe it's chicken droppings or cow dung, things like that. Yeah. So that's why they're called manures. The biggest challenge with manures is that they also come with a lot of microbial activity. Microbes meaning bacteria, maybe even other pathogens which may have been infecting the plant. Okay, those are all incorporated inside that manure, and that's why you'll find that most of the times they'll tell you that you need to compost the manure, because the action of composting tends to kill all those pathogens which are there, and then making that manure now safe for use in a field. Yeah, so that is one distinction. Then also the mineral content of manure is very different. So for example, you might have something like chicken manure, but chicken manure doesn't really have phosphates. It's got more urea type material in it than it does phosphates. All right. So a manure, whilst it's useful, may not necessarily provide you with the sort of nutrients that you need in the soils. An organic fertilizer addresses that by specifically formulating the composition of minerals which are going to be available to the plants, yeah, which is different again from manures.
Amazing. Okay, so I think so far you have given us the history of your products and also the benefits of actually using organic fertilizer. So maybe I think you might as well just tell us how easily are these products accessible?
Okay, at the present moment, we're still rolling out our distribution channels. We're still sort of like finalizing a lot of the issues to do with Zema. We've cleared the issues around Zari. Okay, we've got Zema to do, and then we have to go through and build an agro dealer network who are going to be supporting our products, which we hope to do within the next 2 months.
Amazing.
Sure.
Okay, and last but not the least, do you have any farmers that have used Falzam organic fertilizer?
We've got many farmers who've actually used the product. The Falzam OPF product has been available in Zambia since about like 2018-19. We distributed quite a lot of it in Chikankata and Dudumwezi.
Nice.
And the farmers had various experiences with it. Of course, part of the problem with introducing a product is that you need to give the necessary agronomic support so that people know how to use the product. And there's a misconception that when you're using an organic fertilizer, for example, in maize, that you do not need to use urea, which is wrong. Yeah. Our organic phosphate fertilizer, the Falzam OPF, is a basal fertilizer. It needs to be buried in the ground. You don't put it on top. It has to be in the soil. In fact, all basal fertilizers are supposed to work like that, right? And but the practice in Zambia has been you take D-compound and you put it on the top. Right? Okay, so that is why we had variable results. And as a consequence of that, we decided that we're going to run trials. We've got 25 trials. We've got trials at various farmer training centers supervised by the Ministry of Agriculture, where we've grown our first crop of maize using the OPF and comparing it with D-compound, and then also using our biopesticides, basically BioHunter, which is a neem-based product, and potassium salt of active phosphorus, which is an organic chemical as well.
Okay.
Right.
Amazing. Okay, so today we were in Shimabala and we were visiting Mr. Solomon at his farm, and he's one of the farmers that is part of the Smart Farming project. He will be growing sweet peppers, and of course today we had experts from Green Holland Tech that were advising him on the soil preparation, of course, and the soil testing. So please do join us on our next location, where we are going to be talking to the next farmer who will be growing tomatoes and cabbages. See you next week.